Okay, on part 3 we left off, he was talking about pretty much his upbringing and the way he was raised and things like that. He said he had never saw his father cry, and his father was his hero, and his mother always was questioning him about how he felt, and his mom was the one that was always the one really loving and to give him affection and all such as that. But the bottom quote here, this last one, I think is very interesting, very telling, and I think it actually says a lot more than what the words actually put out. And it says, I don't know if growing up that way kept me that way. You deal with things on your own, but then they just build up so much that you cannot deal with them, and they take a hold of you. You never thought, in a way, they could take a hold of you. Now that quote really says a whole lot, and I believe there's a lot of people like that, and I have to say, just to be honest, I'm kind of guilty as that as well. Like if somebody says something to me, and this is from my childhood as well, and it really maybe offends me or bothers me, it's like my number one goal not to let them know it offended me. It didn't bother me. It just bounced right off of my back. And seriously, it does. Deep down, it is. It's really just eating and gnawing at in the pure pit of your gut, And you would just, or me, when I was younger, I would just like, detach. I would just go off to another room, want to be by myself, and then I would eventually get over it, right? And so, yeah, I was very much that way. And I think it was from my upbringing too, just to be honest. And my dad's like that. My dad was never really one to show emotion, and I'll have to be honest there too. My dad, I never saw him cry either. Although there was many times you would think he would. You could tell, you could look at him and tell it was really, really getting to him, whatever it is. Now, I have to take that back. I did see him cry one time, but it was like for a brief second. He turned his head really quick. It's like he didn't want me to see him, right? And that's when my mother was having the surgery for cancer, and that she did eventually pass away with. But, some people are like that. And it does have a lot to do with your raising. I really, truly believe that. Because as I say, I'm that way in a sense myself. And to be honest, I also sort of did it with my own kids. Like my daughter, if somebody said something that offended her, especially like a guy or her husband, that was abusive to her, he would say cruel things to her. He was a very big narcissist, and anything she had ever told him that was like a weakness of hers, he would use it against her. Like she had this kind of a complex about herself because she had a small split in her 2 front teeth, and it wasn't even really noticeable. Really, it wasn't, to the point that the dentist even said, no, she don't need braces. It adds character or whatever. It wasn't huge. It was just barely a little tiny split. Well, her being into modeling and pageants and all like she was, when she was a teenager, she really had a complex about that. And so she told him, and what happened? The first time he gets mad with her, he is just using that against her. Oh, you gap tooth, you gap mouth, And she would tell me what he was doing, and I would be like, don't let him know it bothers you. Just look at him and go, yep, absolutely, and it adds character, and I'm proud of it, And so that's what she did, but deep down it really hurt her and bothered her. So I get that quote. And maybe a lot of you will understand it and get that quote as well. There's a lot of us that was actually raised that way, especially around my age. I believe that because our dads were just that way. It was just, I don't know. My dad was a military, Korean War, Purple Heart even. And so he just did not show emotions. Really, he didn't. But And I think we just kind of took that from him, maybe. My mother was a bag of emotions, She was just all over the place with her emotions. Sad, happy. She was just, an outgoing. But when she was sad, she wasn't afraid to show it, right? But I guess, and my sister's like my mom, but me, I'm more like my dad. And so, yeah, I think a lot of us can relate with that quote. Okay, let's get right into part 4. I'm sorry about that, but I just wanted to touch base on that because that quote says a lot. I can relate with that quote, and I bet a lot of you can too. Okay, going on down, it says, to regard to Watts planting evidence. It says, after he murdered Shanann, he threw her cell phone and Apple Watch on the couch. He says if he had planned it, he would have taken her items out to the oil tank site with him. He took off Shanann's wedding ring and put it on the counter so it looked like she didn't want to fix their marriage and she wanted a divorce. He threw the therapy book away in the trash so it looked like she believed nothing would work in their marriage. And with regards to Chris planting evidence, he says after he murdered Shanann, he threw her cell phone and her Apple Watch on the couch. And if he had planned it, he would have taken her items out to the oil tank site with him. He took off Shanann's wedding ring and put it on the counter so it looked like she didn't want to fix their marriage and wanted a divorce. He threw the therapy book away in the trash so it looked like she believed nothing would work in their marriage. He may have gone down to the basement to get trash bags, and the reason he says that is because they questioned him because of the motion sensor alarms that kept going off on the basement door that morning. They said there was a lot of activity going on in the basement that morning. He does not recall going downstairs to work out that morning. And with regard to what he said after he went into the house that afternoon of Monday, August the 13th, the reason they asked him this is because Chris was in the house for approximately a minute or a little over a minute before he went to the front door and opened it for Conrad and Nicole Atkinson and just whoever was walking in there. And he went in through the garage door and he opened the front door. And what he said is he ran upstairs and pretended to look around for Shanann and the girls. Atkinson's son found Shanann's cell phone. And with regard to Watts looking in the passenger side of Shanann's vehicle when he entered the garage, he says he does not recall looking in Shanann's vehicle, but he possibly opened the passenger door because Nicole had mentioned seeing the girls' car seats. And to me, that just still seems amazing how her son could have saw through those small windows so up high, tinted glass on the Lexus. I'm not saying he didn't. I mean, obviously he said he did, but I don't know. He's got really good eyesight and very tall. That's, obviously that has to be. And I'm sure he is, and he is young, so he's probably got really good eyesight. So that's it. He threw the sheet to their bed away the day after the murders. When you strangle someone, sometimes they evacuate their bowels, and that occurred with Shanann and was the reason he threw away the sheet. And with regard to Chris's communication with his father the morning he picked him up from the airport, it was strange when he picked up his father because he knew it was probably going to be the last time he would see him on the outside. His father just wanted to talk about sports when they were in the car together, and his father always tries to deflect the conversations and change the subject when they needed to discuss something important. His father asked him if he knew where Shanann and the girls were. Maybe he kind of figured out something, maybe happened, and he just wanted to talk to me as a son. I have noticed, listening to the various phone calls that's been leaked with them talking to Chris and even the tapes and everything, I have noticed that when him and his dad talk, It's different than when him and his mother talks, when him and his dad do. His dad, he does seem to kind of try to deflect from the bad and kind of put Chris's mind on a different trajectory, maybe. It's the only way I know to say it. He'll talk about sports and cars. I've noticed that myself with his dad and him. I think his dad, just to be honest, he's a lot like me, really, just to be honest, from what I've saw in here. When I see one of my grandkids upset and terribly sad, and I'll talk to him for just a second, and then I'm notorious for changing the subject and trying to change it to something that I know will make them feel better and uplift their spirits, because I can't stand to see their spirits broken, because when I see them sad and upset, well, it does it to me as well. Probably worse than it's doing it to them. So I always do that myself. Like if they come to me and they're sad about something, and I'll talk to them, for a few minutes about it, but then I'll be like, but look at the bright side, and then I'll start trying to just pump their spirit right back up, and I just can't stand to see them sad. Yeah, I think it hurts me worse than it does them, and I don't know that that's what Ronnie's doing when he is deflecting the actual topic at hand, but I do that, and I know that's why I do it. Says he was told his father never left during Chris's entire polygraph and interview. If his father knew what actually happened, his father would have told him to admit what he had done. His mother was always more aggressive when in the parents' marriage. His and Shanann's marriage seemed to mirror Shanann's mom and dad's relationship. Shanann is very similar to her mother, and Chris was like Shanann's father. Shanann's mother always told her she would marry someone like her father. Well, that's generally how it ends up going, You've always heard the old saying, you're going to marry somebody just like your dad. And it really does, for the most part. A lot of times it does end up that way. I mean, a lot of times it doesn't, but for the most part I think it does. Shanann's father always liked him because he helped fix Shanann's car when they were dating. Chris has always been the one to help people and not hurt them. Chris never tried to change Shanann. Shanann's husband in her first marriage was more like her mother, and it did not work out. Well, you cannot have two dominating roles in a marriage. You can, but yeah, you're going to have a lot of headbutting, and it's generally not going to turn out very well. So, yeah, you almost have to have a dominant and a submissive, and, yeah, or just two, happy-go-luckies, but two dominants, even two submissives wouldn't be good either, because then you're just going to have an issue as well, with everything falling apart and nobody wanting to step up to the plate and fix it, right? So, yeah, you need to have one of each. That's for real. The balance works. It just does. And with regard to if Chris knew walking into the police department the morning of the polygraph he would confess to what happened, he said he knew there was a reason he was brought back into the police department the following day. He said the polygraph was horrible. He was asked questions for 3 to 4 hours before the polygraph, and it's like you just break down somebody's brain to where, like, to mush, to jello. I know you guys have a job, and you have a plan, and you executed it. He says he knew when he was asked about what he did on Saturday night, and he had to talk about the Rockies game. It was going to be a thorough interview. Walking in there that day, just walking into that room, I knew I wasn't walking out. Saturday night, there we are again. I will always say something huge happened or was talked about or was planned or something. I don't know, something big happened that Saturday night. And with regard to Chris's media interviews, he said he never wanted to speak to the media. He felt like the media was going to continue to knock on his door until he answered. And Nicole Atkinson had called and told him Fox was going to be at his house at 10:30 for an interview. He doesn't even want to know what he said or what he looked like on the news. Some people said he made it look worse after the fact. And that's kind of weird to me. Nicole Atkinson. I mean, how she would call him and tell him that Fox is going to be there at 10:30 in the morning for an interview. Wouldn't they have to confirm that with Chris? How could they confirm that with her? See, I just don't get that. I mean, why would she even be called by Fox News anyway to give Chris an interview? I can see them calling to give her one maybe, but Chris? And then she would confirm them that they could go to Chris's house and do an interview with them. Just doesn't make sense to me. It looks like they would either be camped out on his front yard and, like you see in the media, every time he walks outside, they're asking questions and all this. But no, it was like this was a damn appointment set up to do an interview by Nicole, and it's very odd to me, especially the fact that Nicole literally cussed them out, basically. I mean, was very rude to them when they asked her if they could give her another interview because they had found new evidence or something. And she was just like, she gave them hell. And in the background, her husband was raising hell. And she was all like, well, am I going to go to jail? And I have no idea why she said that at all, because why would she? She was only trying to help her friend, so I don't know. But I do see it odd that Nicole Atkinson is the one that set up this appointment and confirmed it and told Chris, here's your appointment, and, they're going to be there. I just find that very odd. He says he ended up just lying to more and more people by talking to the media. He heard he looked like a heartless, soulless person. Well, he didn't look so good, I'll tell you that. The lack of emotion, and maybe at the time, I mean, you could even see it at the time, even though she was just, her and the kids were just missing. Even that should have shown some, pretty worried and extreme emotion from most people. But knowing what we know now, that he actually knew that they were gone, and looking back in hindsight at those emotions, very chilling. However, his friends, co-workers, people that knew him all said that they saw nothing different about Chris. Said they had, even Mark Jamison, his friend since he was 8 years old, he was like, there was really nothing different. That's Chris. I knew him since I was 8 years old, and Chris I've never seen him show emotion on anything. So he didn't act any different to me at all. I mean, his actions were not odd to me at all. And that is what all the people that actually knew Chris was saying about his emotions. Now, on the outside looking in, people like us, it's like, wow, he's laughing, or he's swaying from side to side, and just everything, I mean, that looks like a heartless, soulless person. It does. There's no other way to describe it. So, I don't know. I mean, I do know people like Chris. I mean, I'm not like that. If that would have been my family missing, I would have been going off the damn deep end and losing it. And like I say, I'm not a very emotion person either, but I would have been losing it. My dad, going back to him, the guy I told y'all that I never really saw much emotions out of, he wouldn't have been crying, but I can tell you, my dad damn sure wouldn't have been laughing either. By no means. Actually, he probably wouldn't even have done the interview. But if he did, he would have been Daddy was a man of small, just few words, those kind of man. Simple man of few words. he would have just been like, yeah. He would have just wanted him to get the hell out of there so he could go look for his family. But I don't know, I do have to say his emotions in that interview was just not very good. Not at all. It did scream guilt big time. On the outside looking in, of course. We don't know him. So all we can do is just, go by what we think. Now, the whole swaying back and forth thing, I'm not going to put a hell of a lot of stock in that. My son does that. My son will sit with his arms crossed and hugging himself when he's just talking, So, I don't put a whole lot of stock in stuff like that. I truly don't. But the laughing and, I don't know, that got to me, really. And it says, with regard to if Chris spoke to Kessinger after the murders, he says, he spoke to her on Monday, August the 13th, and him and Nikki texted and then spoke on the phone. Nikki said she believed Shanann took off with his daughters. And on Tuesday, August the 14th, Nikki kept asking him weird questions through text messages to try and determine if it was really him. Nikki asked him what his dog's name was and what yoga studio he went to. It was possible Kessinger believed Shanann had his cell phone, and she was making sure. And then Nikki told him it was the last time that he was going to hear from her, and she was going to go stay with her friend Jim. Okay, that was August the 14th, and on August the 14th, Chris spent the night with the Thayers, and so the next morning he got up, went to the airport, and picked up his dad, and went and had the polygraph. Well, Nicole would have knew he was at the Thayers. He would have told her that. I mean, obviously he would have, and they FaceTimed all the time, so she would have knew that wasn't Shanann. I mean, her cell phone records, even says that they talked a lot, so, on that day. So, she knew that wasn't Shanann. She thought it might have been the cops, and I believe that is what was said in the interview. But, at any rate, here's the thing. If she really was not worried about anything or didn't know anything, then why in the hell would she be asking these questions to make sure it's him? I mean, what would it matter? What would she be saying that would be so incriminating? I just don't get it. I don't believe that. I don't believe she thought it was Shanann. I just don't. She knew he was at the Thayers. Why would he be at the Thayers if Shanann's with him? This doesn't make sense. She thought it could have been the cops. That's why she was asking these questions, I guess. Or she was just trying to check his memory. I don't know. It is very odd, to say the least. Kessinger told him it was the last time he would hear from her, and she was going to stay with her friend Jim. Well, of course it was. He was going to take the polygraph the next day. I'll guarantee you, if he had walked out of that room at the polygraph, even though his family was not found yet, I will guarantee you that he would have talked to Nicole. Just saying. What do you think? Do you think that she just wouldn't have spoke to him again? No, I don't. If that was a fact, then she would have stopped talking to him on the 13th, right? But no, she was making even more phone calls and had reverted to his personal phone instead of his work phone. And notice how they put parentheses around what Nikki said here. And it says, Nikki told him not to contact her until this is done. You see the parentheses? The parentheses to me say that they really wanted that to stand out. That's just one little odd sentence, right? Until this is done. Nikki told him to delete everything on his cell phone. He didn't delete everything from Nikki, and he's not sure why. Well, why delete everything? That would actually put her looking better if all of their messages could be seen, right? I mean, she even made the comment to Kobach, "Wow, I really want to help y'all. I wished I hadn't deleted those text messages. What else was it? I just really want to help y'all and all this." But yet, she's telling him, delete everything on your cell phone. Everything. And he says he didn't, but he don't know why he didn't. I think I know why he didn't. I think he wanted them to see it. However, we really heard everything that was on his cell phone. See, he had two. And there was also, from what I've been told and understand, and I even seen it, but I can't say for certain that's what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a burner phone. And I truly think they both had burner phones, just to be honest. Another thing that gets to me, and I really don't understand, which I don't understand so much about the investigation of this case, but they took Shanann's MacBook, watch, tablet, they took Chris's laptop, tablet, everything, but the only thing they took from Nicole is a reset phone with a broken SIM card. Why didn't they look at her laptop, her personal laptop at home, that she'd done most of her searches on? Why didn't they ask to see that? Chris did stay there and live there with her for 5 weeks. He had literally been at her house more in the last almost 2 months than he had his own. So why wasn't her laptop looked at? Not to mention, in her apartment complex, they have a area that is nothing but like 7 or 8 laptops set up against a wall, with the computer chairs and everything, just for the people that lives there if they need to use, a laptop and they don't have one maybe. But yeah, that's there too, the study area. So, I mean, she had access to all kinds of electronics and laptops and things like that, but nothing was looked into except her deleted phone, and that was it. And I don't understand that. Now, till this day, Chris's cell phone's still not been returned to his dad. His dad, Chris signed a waiver for his dad to get all of his belongings, right? Because, well, he got life, so he's not going to be needing them, right? So his dad got his clothes and his wallet and everything except his phone. And from the way I understand it, he has tried several times since then to get his phone, but D.A. Rourke will not turn it over to him. Why not? I mean, what's the deal? If it was something that was on it, they could just, wipe it off, right? Or they've already taken it off and they've uploaded it for themselves and all that kind of stuff. So why not give them the phone? Well, it makes me wonder, was that phone part of the stuff that was destroyed after a year when all evidence was destroyed? Now, it did say DNA evidence and such as that, but was that phone one of the things that was destroyed? Was there something on that phone that we don't know about? It's a good question, and I would love to know the answer to it, because there's really no reason for them to be holding that phone, when Chris has already signed the waiver and he's done gotten everything else that belonged to Chris except the phone. I don't know. It says when he was on vacation in San Diego, he told his friend Mark about Nikki. If you haven't heard Mark's interview, because they did call and get an interview from him, and if you haven't heard it, it is pretty interesting. I was talking about him earlier. Him and Chris's childhood best friends knew each other since they were like 8 years old. I will link his video and interview at the end of this one so you can listen to it, because it is very interesting, to hear from somebody that has knew him his whole life. It says Mark had a similar situation occur when he started dating a female who was engaged, and the female ended up cheating on him. He never completely opened up to Mark about Nikki, but he wished he did, because Mark may have been able to offer him some advice. It seems like Chris depends on other people's advice, suggestions, commands, everything more than he ever should have. He should have, it's always nice to have advice or opinions and things like that, but sometimes you have to go with your own feeling. You have to know for yourself, am I making the right decision? Is this right or wrong? Do I need to not be doing this, or should I go for this? Sometimes when you are making some big decisions, you need them to come from your own gut, your own heart, and your own mind. And yeah, it's great to talk with a buddy, but at the same time, you can't live your life just taking advice, opinions, and orders and commands from everybody else, because at the end of the day, you're going to be destroying your own self. You have to be able to do those things for yourself. You can listen to other people's, but don't be so quick to jump at everything everyone else says this is what you should do. And I've always told my kids this. Pull out that scale, and then you weigh the options. If I do it this way, and then if I do it this way, and then the consequences here and the consequences there. Because every action you make will have a consequence. So you need to make sure that the action you're taking is going to be a consequence you can handle and live with. So I always say, pull out the scale. And they know what I'm talking about when I say that. They'll be telling me, I'm thinking about doing this or this. And I'll say, well, you need to go sit down in your room in a quiet spot and pull that scale out in your head before you do that. And they know exactly what I'm talking about. Because you've got to weigh your options. You can't just go on what someone else says. Period. And it says, with regard to Nikki being directly or indirectly involved in the murders, he says, Nikki had her moments where I had to talk to her, like off of a ledge kind of deal. There's no yes or no there. And that's what's always got to me. And even when you listen to it in the interview, they eventually keep asking and they keep beating around the bush about it. And he's like, no. But his initial response, when they asked him, he didn't say yes or no. He just said she had her moments where I had to talk her off of a ledge kind of deal. So that sounds to me like she flies off the damn handle. If things didn't go in her way, or if she thinks something's not going to be working out the way she plans or expects it to, she flies off the damn handle. That's what it sounds like to me. There was no yes or no to that. But yet it was a yes or no question. So it says there was videos of Nikki recording herself because she was bipolar. His father or his attorney told him about a few videos that Nikki made where she was talking about being bipolar. Well, how could his dad have saw these videos? I mean, I guess he could have maybe may have just Googled Chris what's his name to see what was the newest news or whatever. I don't know. But I lean more so towards his attorney is the one that told him that. She would get worked up about nothing. She came to his house one time, July the 4th, 2018. Okay, by now, they already know that she had been to his house more than once. They know this. At the same time, Chris hasn't talked to her, right? He has not talked to her at all since August the 14th. So did they set up something to say, she's only been to my house one time? Because in Nikki's very first interview, she said herself the same thing. I've only been to his house one time, and that was on July 4th. Well, now he's saying she was only there one time, July 4th. Well, he's not aware that they know she's been there more. You see where I'm going with that? That almost sounds like something that him and Nikki decided together to say, right? Because in her first interview, she said that's the only time she had been there. She even said, I've been there one time, and it was on July 4th. Well, he just said the same thing. So to me, that sounds like a damn rehearsed situation. That he really wasn't aware they had the cover blue on it, because they knew she'd been there more than that. It says he woke up early the morning of July the 4th at Nikki's house because he didn't have to work that day. When he woke up, he had 10 missed calls from Shanann. He said he went outside and called Shanann back, and Shanann was pissed, for good reason. Shanann yelled at him and asked him where he was at. He told Shanann he was sleeping, and Shanann told him she didn't know where he was at and hung up on him. He went back inside and told Nikki that he had to go home in case Shanann called back. Nikki asked him if he was going to come back, and he said no. Nikki was pissed that he left. Nikki said she felt like she was always going to be second fiddle. Well, why would she tell him that if she's telling him to fix his marriage? Now really. And why would she be pissed off that his wife is calling him? It just doesn't add up. Kessinger told him she researched online if mistresses could turn into a real relationship. Now, why would she tell him that? Well, can you just be a fly on the wall at that conversation? You know what? I think I'm always going to be second fiddle. I did some research online to see if a mistress could ever turn into a real relationship. Come on. Does that not sound like pressure? It does to me. Around the first week of August, he told Kessinger he talked to Shanann about separating, so Kessinger started looking for apartments for him. So see, he told Nikki the first week of August. That's when he got back from North Carolina. That's when he finally told Nikki, according to him, that he had talked to Shanann about separating. And as soon as he told her that, she started looking for him an apartment away from Shanann. I don't know. I'm not going to say any more into that. I think it speaks for itself louder than I can. Kessinger never asked him to get rid of his family. His relationship with Nikki contributed to the murders, but she never asked him to do anything. I don't think she asked him to do anything. It'll just straight out saying it either. But I believe there was some manipulation there. I really do. Yes, I do. Kessinger never knew if she wanted to have kids, but she told him she wished she could give him a son. Nikki never knew Shanann was pregnant. I'm sorry. That is impossible. I will never believe that. And I truly don't think anybody on the face of the earth believes that. And if they do, then they're very gullible. And they're very easily manipulated. That's all I can say. If anybody believes that Nikki did not know that Shanann was pregnant after all the proof that we've got of her searching Facebooks and everything we know, if you still believe that she didn't know Shanann was pregnant, then you are a very gullible person. And I feel really sorry for you, because you can really be used. You can be manipulated. You're vulnerable. All of the above. And you would be a narcissist. Perfect prey. Don't kid yourself. She knew. Is it possible Kessinger saw Shanann was pregnant from Facebook? But Nikki never mentioned it to him if she saw it. See, that's like Chris said, it is possible that she saw Shanann was pregnant from Facebook. So see, Chris knew Nikki looked around on Facebook. I guess she had told him that. That's why he really didn't want any pictures taken with Shanann at the beach in North Carolina. He didn't want Nikki to see them. So he knew she was on Facebook. There's no way in hell she didn't know she was pregnant. There's no way in hell nothing she said about their relationship or the pregnant, or her thinking he was separated. No way in hell none of that's true. I'll never buy it. Ever. Now, there's some people going to get upset with me for saying that. But before you get upset with me, do me a favor. Research. Go back and listen to my videos of these discovery readouts. Go look at my playlist, Nicole, Kessinger, the mistress. Go watch all of that. And then you come back here before you comment and tell me you still believe that she did not know Shanann was pregnant and she thought they were getting separated. Before you comment and leave me this hideous comment, do that. And if you can still come back and tell me that after you do the homework, then I got a few questions for you too. Okay, with regard to the possibility he named his son Nico after Kessinger, he says Shanann picked the name for their son. He wanted to spell his son's name N-E-K-O. But Shanann said no. N-I-C-O is an Italian name that Shanann always liked. And I know everybody spells it N-I-K-O, but technically Shanann wanted it spelled N-I-C-O. I mean, she just did. But that's the spelling she had chosen. And it is very odd Nico Lee was going to be his name. There again, another coincidence into this case. N-I-C-O-L-E and then an E. That's Nicole. So odd. This case has more coincidences than a damn glass house. I swear. He did not get to pick any of his children's names, but he told Shanann that he liked them. With regard to him looking up lyrics in the Metallica Battery, he said, Nikki likes the song Battery and asked me what the song meant. He researched the meaning behind the lyrics and learned it referenced a family coinciding as a battery. He did not look up the lyrics to the song when he was driving to the oil well site after the murders. Nicole was into different types of music, and Battery was a song she asked him about because she knew he liked Metallica very well. Well, Metallica's got tons of songs, right? Many. Metallica's been around forever. Like, Battery is one of their, good songs. At the same time, it's not one of the, in my opinion, the most well-known. If you wanted to go that route, I don't know about where everybody else is from, but here, my personal favorite song, and I love Metallica, is One, because it just reminds me of my dad. It's an army. It's about war. So my personal is One, and that is a big one. And then there's Master of Puppet. There's another one. And The Last Straw, and Justice for All, Enter the Sandman. Those are all, but why Battery? And for the record, it was 10:10 a.m. that he looked up the lyrics to that song. I got a video about that as well. I'll link it at the end here too. And with regard to how Chris was doing mentally, he didn't know he was going to blank. When he was at the Denver Reception and Diagnostic Center, he was put through the ringer. He took 11 separate tests to figure out his IQ. His IQ was 135 or 140. That's huge. It's like almost a genius level. But there again, just because you have book smarts, damn sure does not mean you have street smarts, common sense, that kind of thing, general knowledge. Book smarts is great, but you gotta also have general knowledge, common sense, street sense. You gotta have all that to go together, right? If you've just got a book and you don't have any glasses, if you need them, then that book's not going to do you a damn bit of good. You gotta have the two to combine to make it work. I mean, it's just fact. And as far as general knowledge, street smarts, common sense Chris lacked in, because he had always been with the dominant person. Someone had always kind of led him along, and he just went along for the ride. He just followed right along. So he's never had to have those areas of knowledge. That's the way I see it. He says after dinner one evening he was told to change clothes, and he was put into a van and transported to Dodge Correctional, where he's at now. He got staffed at the prison in Dodge and hopes to get a job soon. He has a female he sees at the prison who asks him how things are going and if he needs any psych meds. So somebody at the prison, some female at the prison, is offering him medications for mental health, it looks like. He has declined any and all psych medication. Most of the men in the unit are on medication. He tries to keep a low profile in prison, and with regard to what food he misses the most, he says he misses Bojangles, Georgia Boy's barbecue, and Shanann's cooking, her spaghetti sauce, and fried pizza. I want to try fried pizza. I've never tried it. It sounds very different, and I would love to try it. And another fun fact, I have never tried to make my own spaghetti sauce. My spaghetti sauce comes out of a jar I buy at Walmart. So seeing this, it makes me want to try to make my own, and I want to find a recipe for fried pizza because it really sounds cool. It really does. I want to try to do that. Shanann and her grandmother's recipe for pizza dough, and she made amazing pizza. We've seen a lot of videos of Shanann cooking, and with her being Italian, they do some amazing cooking, and they love to cook, and they put pride in their cooking, and they're just known for that, you know. So I bet just looking at the things she cooked and was cooking in the videos did look very good, very good. So I bet he does miss that. And with regard to what Chris does with all of the letters he receives while in jail or prison, if someone writes him once, he will not write them back. That is like a rule of thumb for him, you know. You gotta write him twice, or he does not write somebody back if they only write once. Maybe it's some kind of superstitious thing with him, or maybe he just has that rule. I don't know, but yeah. So if you've ever tried to write him and he didn't write you back, that would probably be why. I'm just saying. And I do see people out there that says, I've tried to write him, he's never replied to me. Well, if you really want him to reply, then that's probably why. If you want to write him, I don't know. He keeps most of the supportive letters, but will throw away any weird letters. There is a male who is a high school senior who wrote him. So Chris threw the letter away. And then the same male wrote him again a few weeks ago and told him he supported him. Many people, including journalists, have tried to write to him to ask him a lot of questions. He has responded to a few people, but they were people his parents had talked to, so he knew they were real. Many people ask him for spiritual advice. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? He had one female write him who was in an abusive relationship and could not find a relationship with God. He had never read the Bible before going to prison, and he has since read it cover to cover. He writes down a couple of scriptures a day for his parents. His uncle and aunt are missionaries and were amazed how mature he has become with the Bible. His Watts gift is a great memory, so he tries to help people by memorizing scriptures. He has other inmates write him just to ask him if he could send them some scriptures. Wow. If people ask about the case, he will not write them back. Period. I guess he has that rule as well. And with regard to if he ever thought he would fall in love again, he said, no, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not the guy that's down the street. What's his name? He heard blank got engaged over a letter. And that is pretty insane. wonder if that is Dylan he's talking about, because there's this guy named Dylan that he's wrote a book with, and some chick sent Chris a letter, and Chris was playing matchmaker, I guess, and gave Dylan the letter and said, hey, here's a chick, you need to write her back, and they got in some, I guess they're engaged, yeah. And I agree with Chris, that is pretty damn insane. Getting engaged over a letter. So yeah. Especially to someone in prison. But to each their own, Not putting down nobody, I'm just saying that wouldn't be for me. He heard one female send him a letter while he was in Colorado, which included a picture of her in a bikini, and the press found out. He does not write back anyone associated with the media. Well, the media is not always your best friend, that's for sure. At the same time, the media sure in the hell gets a lot of information on him very quickly as soon as it comes out, so somebody's telling the media something somewhere. They have a quote-unquote source somewhere. The blank news stations have asked to talk to him, and the prison has declined it. He has never thought about writing a book. Well, he has now, and there is one fixing to be published, or maybe it has been published. It's a book of scriptures, I think. It's all about religion. So, yeah. His parents has suggested that he write down how he feels and how he has been dealing with everything. He has always had a crazy imagination ever since he was a little kid. He convinced his teacher in grade school that he went to Japan or China over the summer, which was not true. He wrote the whole story about it, and his teacher believed him. Well, he's either a damn good liar, which, yeah, he, I don't know if he's good at it, or he's got a hell of an imagination, something. But yeah, a lot of people put a lot of stock in that he said right there. That ever since he was a kid, he's been lying, and he's been an expert liar. Well, maybe that's very possibly true. But at the same time, he could have just been a kid with a hell of an imagination. Who knows? Maybe he read a book about it. Or, like everybody thinks, he could have been a hell of a good liar since a child. I'm not going to call the shots myself because I don't know. But we know he'll lie. I personally don't think he's that good at lying, just to be honest. I just don't. And with regard to what Chris thinks of himself now, he said when he was incarcerated in Weld County, he did not feel like himself. He wondered how any of his friends could say good things about him after what had happened. He shouldn't take to heart what people think about him, because what God thinks about him is the only thing that matters now. Well, that is a big thing. That really does matter. At the same time, you do, in this world, you really do have to worry, in a sense, about what other people think of you. Not to the point to where you have to be a people pleaser or if you want to be the bad boy or the bad girl, either way, I just find it untrue that nobody worries about what other people think of them. I think your character says a hell of a lot about who you are. So, I'm just saying. He says he has asked God for forgiveness, and I was hoping they could one day forgive me too. He has done some good things in his life, but he screwed up the most important thing. That's true. And I'm glad he acknowledges that. And I hope he's accepted that, because that is 100% true. That is one of the truest statements I probably ever heard him say. He didn't just screw it up, he destroyed it. He hopes he can help other people with the time he has left. It's going to take a long time for the guilt to go away. People are defining him by one moment in his life. Well, yes. Yes. How can you not? I mean, seriously, if it was him, and he heard this about some random guy on TV, he would probably be the same way. He would definitely judge that person on such a extreme moment in his life. So yeah, that is very true, and that is very fact-based. I mean, there's no other way to put it. As they should, really. I mean, as they should. I never knew I could have a relationship with God like I do now. It's like the amazing grace with all of this, but I just wish nobody had to pay any kind of price for this. I know there is a purpose for everybody. I just hope I can find mine. I just wish nobody had to pay any kind of price for this. Well, they did. Four somebodies paid the ultimate price for this. And then it says, with regard to what we could have said in order for him to have told us the truth during his interview at the Frederick Police Department. And he said, when he was in the interrogation room, he was nervous and knew he did something wrong and knew they were going to find out. He has watched enough TV shows, but he never talked to a police officer in the past. He struggled with the horror of knowing what he did and trying to tell someone else about it. Horror, yes, but I think a lot of it was shame, guilt, disgrace, of yourself. You just can't bring yourself to say that you would do something so horrific. He didn't even want to admit to himself what he had done. He knew what he did was horrific and how much it would hurt other people. He could not admit to himself that he had done it. So he couldn't admit it to the police. He believed if he wasn't asked about Shanann hurting the kids, it may have come out a different way. Yeah, he may have told the truth. He may have eventually broke and told the truth. Not the truth that you're going to hear in this, and not the truth that you're going to hear in Cato's book. Because I believe when Chris is given something, he runs with it. Really, I do. And there's a lot I could say about all that, but I'm just not going to right now. He believed if we would have lied and told him we saw the video of the kids in the truck, he would have told us the truth. He asked to talk to his dad because he wanted to tell him he loved him and that it was probably the last time he would see him outside of a cell. So maybe that is what it was. He wanted to talk to his dad. That's why he asked for his dad to come in there, because he knew he was just going to break. He was just ready to have all the interrogation and all this other shit over with, and he knew he had failed the polygraph, so maybe he was going to tell him the truth. But when that was brought up and mentioned, he was like, well, but did he ever say Shanann? Did he ever use her name? I want to go back and watch that. I really do. I know they did. Did Shanann hurt the kids, or you covering for and all? But did he ever say her name? Or did he just say she and her and she and her? I don't remember. I'm just being honest. I'm going to go back and watch that. Yes, I am. He felt like the interviewers leaving the room from time to time gave him time to stew and was a very successful tactic. He had never seen the picture before of his two girls, which we showed him during the interrogation. He had never seen Celeste wearing the white dress in the picture. The picture of Celeste and Bella we showed him may have came from when they were in North Carolina. Showing him pictures of the girls during the interrogation definitely got in my head. He didn't show emotion when we showed him the picture because he is the type of person to hold it all in and not show emotions. And I'm starting to believe that fully. But yes, that was very odd. They said, really, we talked a lot about that dress. And he's like, no, not that dress. So it's like, he totally don't remember that. Even though he's known as the Rain Man with a photographic memory, he completely did not remember that. And I kind of believe he didn't, because he was very adamant that he did not remember that. So, yeah, I found that quite strange. At the end of the interview, we left the prison as Watts was required to eat lunch and be present during their count. We told Chris we may return after lunch to ask him additional questions, and he said okay. Coder also told Chris We may come back in a month, in a year, or even 2 years to speak with him and to keep it in the back of his mind. We returned to the prison several hours later to speak with Chris, and we told Chris we had additional questions regarding the events of August the 13th. Chris agreed to answer additional questions which are reflected above in the timeline provided by Chris. At the end of the interview, we thanked him for speaking to us and asked him if he would speak to us again in the future. Chris agreed, and we asked Chris what he wanted to have happen with the information that he provided to us. Chris said he figured we would most likely tell Sandy, Frank, and Frankie about what he said to give them closure. Detective Baumhover said he wasn't sure what he would tell the Rusick family, and he had no intention on telling anyone what he said outside of law enforcement. Chris said he would appreciate being able to tell his parents about what happened before they heard it anywhere else. Before the interview, I concluded. I asked Chris if I could take a picture of him for the file. Chris agreed, and the 2 pictures I took are attached to this report. Now, she also told him that nobody else would see the picture. It would stay in the file, and it would never be on social media or anything like that. But as we know, it's all over social media. And that is the end of this transcript. And as opposed to the 5-hour actual interview, it's really briefed up. But of course you have to brief it up. There's really no other way to get it all in here. They might as well written a book, 5 hours. There was a lot said. I'm also working on doing the actual interview and stopping in the middle of it, talking and giving him my thoughts and opinions and all of that kind of stuff. And I think I've got 2 parts of that already completed. And so if you haven't heard that, just feel free to go look for it. It's the prison interview, thoughts and opinions. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoy this. This is the end of the transcript read-through, and I thank you so much for listening. Remember, at the end of this video, I'm going to have Mark Jameson's and the battery video right here. All right, you guys, have a great one. Until next time, this is UnJustified.